All night long, we've been hearing from folks, especially in the Irvington area, about some of the damage they've seen, cars being tossed around, shingles ripped off roofs. And our Matt McCutcheon is in Irvington this morning surveying some of the damage where the National Weather Service will be later today. Matt, what are you seeing out there?
Naomi, there is so much damage in this area. Take a look right behind me. This is either one of several trees in this area that came crashing down, either the entire tree itself or several branches, leaving a lot of limbs here, even roof shingles out and about all over this area. It's also closing part of Hawthorne Road right here near the area of Hawthorne and Irvington. This large tree will have to be chopped up and carried away before this road is allowed to reopen. That's one part of the story crews are working on today. In addition to that, there are still some power outages. In fact, just about 200 power outages IPL continues to try to restore. We have neighbors out here as well looking for items. For instance, right here, we just found somebody's mail that was dropped off and moved as a result of the winds and the storm that moved through this area. So there is a lot of work to be done because there are nearly a dozen heavy branches that are down. The big question this morning is all of this, including the damage from these two cars, part of a tornado. That is a major part of the investigation here today. Daniel McCarthy, a chief investigator for National Weather Service in our area, joins us this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
What do you look for when you come out and survey all of this damage?
Well, I have to see all the damage, but one of the things I look for is these two trees here pointing at each other. That does indicate some rotation. The damage to the cars is another indication, but I really need to get over and look at the houses and things like that before I determine what strength of a tornado this is or what damage rating we're going to have to give it.
You mentioned a little bit of that. What are some of the interesting little telltale signs, the little characteristics that stand out that can definitely say this was a tornado?
Well, I look for things like shearing of the top of the trees like we have back just behind us here. These two trees pointing at each other indicates some convergence from the rotation. The cars kind of help out, and hearing people's stories is also really important. So I'll be trying to see people around here and see exactly what they saw. I just had this one neighbor tell me about how it went by his house and he actually saw it. So we're going to be looking for things like that. You have to understand, tornadoes don't just come down from the sky, but they can spin up as well. And sometimes when we get the storm cluster like we had last night, we can get little quick tornadoes like this that can cause some damage.
We typically hear it sounded like a freight train, but obviously there is much more than that to the investigation and the conversations about that.
Right, you hear it sound like a freight train. You hear that a lot. You also hear it sounds like a jet engine, but you get all kinds of little descriptions like that. But, you know, surveying, I used to survey a lot in the plains and things like that, so I'm looking for little key hints here. It's like doing a CSI meteorology, if you will, when you do something like this.
And lastly, you just arrived here a few minutes ago. How long does it take to kind of gather all of that information and interviews to all to make the determination?
It's probably going to take me about an hour or so. If the area is not that large, it doesn't take as long. When I did Greensburg, it took us 3 days, so out in Greensburg, Kansas. So it can vary depending on the strength of the tornado and the amount of damage that we see.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. A lot of work for him as well as a lot of work for neighbors, power crews, and crews to cut up these trees and get life back to normal here in this community. Of course, we'll stay on scene and continue to bring you the latest developments. Reporting live, Matt McCutcheon, Channel 13 Eyewitness News.